left center field. It is magic.
There's that different sound to left field. Forget about it.
It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Angels. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Monday evening to you, wherever you may be. Dodgers and Angels meeting for the first of four here tonight, and the way it looks, the home team has an advantage. At least it's this way on paper. Last year, all four games won by the home team, and two different teams here tonight. For instance, the Angels play very well at home and so-so on the road. The Dodgers play so-so at home and very well on the road. And, of course, we'll have two here and two there. Tonight, Zach Greinke and Garrett Richards. Richards coming in with a record of 11-4, 3 starts in the National League. His earned run average is .047, and against the American League, the opposition is hitting .197 against the big right-hander. For the Dodgers, Zach Greinke, once upon a time, he was an Angel back in 2012. He was 6-2 then, and with the Dodgers, one of the big things for the 12-game winner, his mastery here at Dodger Stadium. In 23 starts, Zach Greinke has a record at home of 14-3, and his team, the Dodgers, 19-4. So those are the numbers. We're coming up with a ball game and a whole lot more right after this.
Dodger Stadium on a beautiful Monday evening as they get ready for Game 1 of a 4-game series, a home-and-home series between the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim and your Los Angeles Dodgers. Hello, everybody, and welcome inside Dodger Stadium. I'm Alana Rizzo. A couple of congratulations are in order. First for Matt Kemp, who was recently named the National League Player of the Week, 5 home runs in his last 6 games. And Clayton Kershaw, no surprise to anybody, was named the National League Pitcher of the Month for the month of July. 3 complete games in the month of July. Of course, 2 very exciting center fielders in this game, one on each side of this rivalry, Yasiel Puig and Mike Trout. Through 206 career games, you can take a look at the comparison. Yasiel Puig has the advantage on the batting average, but Mike Trout has the advantage in home runs, RBIs, stolen bases. Yasiel with the assist because of that great cannon of an arm that he has. Of course, the team record, 122 and 84 with Yasiel Puig in there, 114 to 92 with Mike Trout in center field. It should certainly be a good one. Garrett Richards on the hill, the young right-hander, 11 and 4 on the year, a 2.74 ERA, and of course for the Dodgers, Zach Greinke going for a league-leading 13th win. He is on the hill tonight for your Los Angeles Dodgers. After the break, the legendary Vince Scully on the call. We'll be right back.
May be. The kids have left the field. They've gotten their autographs, and now the big guys go out and go to work, led by Zach Greinke as he slowly makes his way to the mound. For the Dodgers and the Angels, it's hard not to project that it would be October in the World Series. They certainly welcome back one of the most popular Dodgers, Mike Scioscia, in the uniform of the Angels. Mike, by the way, one more victory, and he will have 1,300 victories as a Major League manager. To give you an idea, Tommy Lasorda had 1,599, and then you go way up. Walter Olson had 2,040. As much as the Dodgers love Scioscia, they would just as soon delay number 1,300 until 5 days from now. However, we'll take a look at Mike's lineup and hear the way the Angels read, at least at the outset. Cole Calhoun in right field, Mike Trout in center, Albert Pujols at first, and Josh Hamilton in left. Eric Ibar at short, Howie Kendrick at second, David Freese at third, Hank Conger behind the plate, and Garrett Richards on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Zach Greinke. Greinke is 12 and 6. He is 1-4 lifetime against the Angels. He once was an Angel, and while he was with them 2 years ago, he was 6-2. One thing for Greinke, it is home sweet home. In his 23 starts at Dodger Stadium, his record here is 14-3, and even more importantly, the team record is 19-4. So Zanke ready to go after Cole Calhoun, the pride of Buckeye, Arizona. Left-hand hitter looks at ball one, and we're underway. Calhoun may or may not be 5'10". They're always kidding him about it. But let's put it this way. He's a lot of ball player, 200 pounds, and he'll be 27 in the middle of October. The 1-0 pitch on the way to Cole. Swung on, line to left, coming up to make a great trap. And it's a base hit. The third base umpire, Brian Knight, indicated immediately, and it was a tough call, but that was a great call by the umpire. So, charging and coming up empty as far as preventing the base hit, and Crawford instead gets his glove on the trap, and it's a leadoff single. And now the great Mike Trout, and we say that with a lot of thought behind it. Everything he does is done well and properly. There are a lot of notes about Mike Trout, and I love this one. 4 players in Major League history over the course of their first 2 full seasons batted .320 with 50 home runs and 200 RBIs. Well, in fact, 200 runs scored. Trout swings at the first pitch and fouls it away. Who are the 4 players? How about Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, Albert Pujols, and now Mike Trout? I mean, a remarkable young player, 3-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year back in 2012, hitting in front of another great hitter, and that would be Albert Pujols. So Trout back up and waiting, no balls and 1 strike. Greinke comes back to him high and inside, 1-1 the count. When you see Trout, especially if you have seen Mickey Mantle before, your first thought is, wow, maybe we'll have another Mantle, who was a switch hitter, and Mike just stays on one side of the plate. Trout is 6'1" and about 235, much bigger than Mickey Mantle. He promptly bangs one to left. Here comes Crawford again. Dives, misses the ball. It goes to the bullpen gate. Here comes Calhoun around to score. And into second base with a stand-up double is Mike Trout. And the Angels lead 1-0. So Carl Crawford has hit the ground twice and come up empty each time. So a single to Calhoun, a double to Trout. Scoring is Calhoun, and it is 1-0 Angels. By the way, the other note, which goes down the drain now, Trout has had at least 1 hit in 25 of 27 games in National League ballparks. Both games without a hit were here at Dodger Stadium, though he has gotten rid of that. So 1-0 Angels, first inning, nobody out, and Albert Pujols up there trying to collect Mike Trout. Albert, famous right-hand batter, and he hits it in the gap in right center. That's going to go to the wall. Trout will score easily. Pujols steams into second, and the Dodgers are leading from behind as the Angels pulverize a single by Calhoun. I was distracted because Dee Gordon ran into second base umpire Jim Reynolds and was knocked down, and Pujols gives him a big hug. Kind of embarrassing to see Gordon, who is trying to get in behind Pujols. Maybe we can take a look. Fastball up right out over the plate. So Greinke has made 6 pitches, and he's given up a single and 2 doubles, and the Angels lead 2-0. And you can see, if you're watching on TV, Crawford is knocked down in the collision with Jim Reynolds. Meanwhile, Pujols talking to Hanley Ramirez. Mike Trout is back in the dugout carrying the mail, and the Angels are off and singing. And the batter now is Josh Hamilton. The big left fielder takes a strike, and the count 0-1. So an explosive beginning. Greinke made only 6 pitches. The chairs haven't even warmed up, and the Angels have stung him for 2. So Josh Hamilton, the big left-hand hitter, checks in. Hamilton batting .288. The next pitch to Josh, that's taken for a strike, and the count 0-2. One of the things about Hamilton, and why we have him full screen, he's probably got as big a shoe size as anybody playing baseball anyway. He takes a size 18. So Josh, who is 6'4" and about 240. No balls and 2 strikes the count. Greinke stunned at the outset. 6 pitches, 2 runs, 3 consecutive hits, 2 doubles. No balls and 2 strikes. Hamilton from Raleigh, North Carolina, trying to pick up Albert Pujols from second base. Hamilton, a first-round pick by the Devil Rays. Interesting, when he was 12 years old, he won the MVP in a tournament. He was a left-hand hitting catcher. He hits a ground ball to Gonzalez, who feeds Greinke for the out. Pujols advances to third. 2-0 in favor of the Angels. That's the first out. And the batter now is Eric Aybar. Eric Aybar, a tremendously gifted shortstop. Should be a Gold Glove winner, hitting .274 as well. Half a dozen home runs, 52 runs batted in. So Aybar checking in left-handed. Pujols at third. Dodgers play the infield up on the left side, not on the right. Aybar 5'10", about 180. 30 years old, been with the Angels a long time. Came up in '06, and the first pitch foul back 0-1. Eric grew up in the Dominican Republic, and he watched and tried to imitate everything that Rafael Furcal did. And of course, he was so much enamored of Furcal, naturally he was going to be a shortstop, and it worked. He had the younger brother Willie Aybar, who played briefly for a couple of years with the Dodgers. Strike one pitch on the way. Eric looks, it's off the plate, and they count 1 ball and 1 strike. The Angels come in 1 game behind Oakland. The Dodgers take the field 2 games in front of the Giants. The Giants won today. They beat the Mets to win 3 out of 4 in New York, and now they go on to Milwaukee. 1-1 pitch on the way, right side of the infield back. Sure enough, ground ball to Adrian Gonzalez. Throws to the plate, and the tag got him. So Pujols dares to come in with the right side of the infield back on a ground ball to Adrian Gonzalez. He is nailed. Aybar is aboard on a fielder's choice, and that was a perfect throw by Adrian Gonzalez to get it to A.J. Ellis. Ellis with the plate block. Albert came in sliding. A long wait. We were watching the young umpire Manny Gonzalez behind the plate. He was going to be very sure, take a good long look, and then he rings up Pujols. So 2 runs, but 2 out. Nice play. And here is Howie Kendrick. Kendrick, a fine hitter, and as a second baseman, he has done a great job for the Angels. Howie backs out, looks down to Gary DiSarcino to see if there might be something in the works. Good reason to think that way with Eric Aybar. Aybar has stolen a dozen. Greinke checking him. Now ready and delivers, and the fastball in for a strike. 0-1. Howie Kendrick facing Zach Greinke. 2-0 in favor of the Angels. Last year, the 4 games were all won by the home team. So we'll see about this year. Game 1 of the 4. Strike 1 pitch on the way to Howie. He backs off. It's low and inside. Kendrick, a veteran, has been with the Angels since '06. A fine hitter always. Out of Jacksonville, Florida. About 5'10", a little over 200 pounds. 10th round pick by the Angels. Howie has been so consistent over the years in every hitting area. hitting .296 against left-handers, .291 against right-handers, .295 at home, .290 on the road. Runners in scoring position, .292, and his lifetime batting average coming into this year, .292. He's a marvelous hitter. Howie waiting. Greinke delivers in the dirt, bouncing away from A.J. Ellis. So to further complicate matters for the Dodgers, Ibar advances to second on what might be assumed to be a wild pitch. For Zach Greinke, in trying to get that ball down, that would be his 9th wild pitch. So you don't think of Greinke being wild, but 9's a lot. So a runner at second with 2 out, 2 balls and 1 strike. Ibar looking for a lift home, and Kendrick certainly capable to do it. Howie has some power. He's hit as many as 18 home runs and driven in as many as 67 runs. 2-1 to Howie Kendrick. Greinke at the belt. Zach delivers, swung on, chopper slowly to short. On the run is Hanley Ramirez to throw it away. In comes Ibar to score, and just like that, the Angels lead the Dodgers 3-0. So Hanley Ramirez had a good ball to handle, did it on the run, and then his throw wasn't even in the neighborhood. For Hanley Ramirez, of course, to draw his 11th error, and it gives the Angels a gift run. So E6, and the batter now is David Freese after the error by Ramirez. So the Dodgers have certainly dug themselves a sizable hole, and against a tough pitcher, Garrett Richards, 11-4. So here's David Freese, and the first pitch to David, missing for ball 1. Back in 2011, David Freese was with the Cardinals down to their last strike, game 6 against Texas. He tied the game with a 2-run triple, and then won the game with an 11th inning home run. Cardinals went on to win game 7, and Freese named the World Series MVP. So David has some glistening credentials, struggling a little bit, hitting .251 coming over to the American League. 6 home runs, 37 runs batted in. In the 2011 postseason, David Freese drove in 21 runs. So the right-hand hitter waiting. Here comes Greinke in the dirt to the backstop. And down to second base goes Kendrick. Another wild pitch charged to Greinke. Well, if this were a tape, you'd say, let's rewind it and start it all over from the beginning, but it's not. So Greinke, 2 wild pitches in the first inning. He now has 10 wild pitches, which, let's face it, is pretty shocking. So 3-0 in favor of the Angels. The old song made famous by Benny Goodman, and the Angels sing, and the Dodgers frown, and everything else has been going the Angels' way, at least for the moment. 3-0 in favor. And the next pitch is swung on, hit in the air to shallow right. A hopper to Kemp. Here comes Kendrick. Throw to the plate is not in time. The Dodgers now, I think, are trying to go after the runner. There was no indication by Manny as to safe and out. The Dodgers feel, I think, perhaps that Ibar didn't touch home plate. However, after a little consultation with Zach Greinke, A.J. Ellis, and it looks like maybe the Dodgers are going to argue that call. Here's the throw if you're watching on television. Matt Kemp, A.J. Ellis up in front of the plate. Ibar slides by the plate. I don't think he touched home plate. But nothing else is to be said. It looked like Ibar's left leg was up in the air. His right leg was outside. Now the plate umpire decides to let everybody know he was safe. But it was questionable. Not enough to review. On TV, watch. The left leg is up. The other leg skims home plate. Okay, good call by Manny Gonzalez, the plate umpire. And a bad start for the Dodgers, down 4-0 in the first inning. So here's Hank Conger. Conger, fine catcher, left-hand batter. He hits a high fly ball. Starting back was Puig. Now he comes in to pick it off, and mercifully for the Dodgers, the top of the first inning is in the books. For the Angels, 4 runs, 4 hits. There were 2 wild pitches and an error. And at the end of half an inning, Dodger Stadium is in shock. 4-0 Angels. The Angels come up with 4 hits, including 3 consecutive hits, back-to-back doubles. The Dodgers oblige with 2 wild pitches and an error, and the Angels lead 4-0. The Dodger lineup, it'll be D. Gordon and Yasiel Puig, then Adrian Gonzalez and Hanley Ramirez, Matt Kemp, the National League Player of the Week in right field, Carl Crawford in left, Juan Uribe at third, A.J. Ellis behind the plate, and Zach Greinke, the pitcher. By the way, Zach Greinke, 2 wild pitches, made 21 pitches in the first inning. Garrett Richards has a 2-game losing streak, but don't let that fool you. He had won 7 straight before the 2-game losses, and those 2 games were each decided 4-3. So Richards, who throws very hard, at one time he was a reliever, and that's really when he learned how to pitch. And Mike Butcher, the pitching coach for the Angels, helped a great deal in his development. And Richard now a top-of-the-line pitcher in quest of his 12th win. Garrett, born in Riverside, but the family moved when he was about 8 years old to Edmonds, Oklahoma. So he went to the university, majored in human relations, but was more interested in the culinary arts. Meanwhile, D. Gordon, who collided with the second base umpire and was knocked down, which was just part of the Dodger problems in the first inning. So Gordon, Puig, and Gonzalez coming up. 4-0 in favor of Pujols and company. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. That's in for a strike, and the count 1-1. Gordon having a wonderful year. Zach Greinke thinking over a nightmare in the first inning with Rick Honeycutt next to him. 1 ball and 1 strike the count. Richards ready and comes back 1-1, and he's low, ball 2. As far as Gordon is concerned, trying to do something that many have not been able to do, trying to lead in stolen bases and in triples. So we'll see if he can do it. He has 10 triples and 51 stolen bases. He hits a little comebacker. Richards picks it up and promptly throws him out. 1 down. Yasiel Puig, who will be coming up. And of course, let's face it, in a 4-game series in the showcase, the Dodgers point to their talented kid in Yasiel Puig, and the Angels point to Mike Trout. And certainly so. Well, let's see. Trout came in hitting .303, 25 home runs, and 80 runs batted in. Puig hitting .323, 13 home runs, 55 runs batted in. So one away, bottom of the first inning. One of the many questions for Mike Scioscia and his pitching coach Mike Butcher is Garrett Richards. His fastball is high, ball one. How many innings can he pitch and at the same time not be effective? He has now worked 144 2/3 innings right to the moment. We'll go back and look at his career in the minors and the majors. The 1-0 pitch swung on and missed. 4 years ago, he had 142 innings in the minors. 3 years ago, he had a combined 157 innings in the minors and majors. 2012, a total of 148 innings. Last year, 145. How long can he continue? Well, they certainly think he can, as Puig hits a chopper to short. Ibar is on it and guns it to first. Almost stepped on Pujols. I think he might have gotten a little bit about it. Pujols' foot on the bag, and now I think he might have come out of his shoe. So Pujols, as he reaches for the throw and tripping over the heel of Pujols' right shoe, Yasiel goes on down the line. Pujols not quite ready yet to continue. Certainly Puig didn't mean it, but his left foot hit Pujols' right foot. And timeout for the moment. Well, let's get back to Richards now. We're talking about his innings. He has now worked 145 innings. That's the most he made last year. So the big question, how many more innings can he pile up? Well, you know, they used to say that he threw awfully hard as a reliever, but now that he's a starter, he doesn't throw as hard. And after looking at the first two hitters, I would doubt that statement as Gonzalez checks in. Richards ready, right-handed delivers, fastball away. To Gordon, his pitches were 99, 99, 98, and 99. And to Puig, 98, 98, 99. Oh, yes, he doesn't throw hard anymore. The 1-0 pitch, check swing for a strike, and the count 1-1. Richards has 143 strikeouts. Greinke came in with 153. So Garrett checking. Good size, 6'3", 215. His fastball on a check swing is low, and a 2-ball, 1-strike count. Mark McGwire talking, no doubt counseling, making observations, passing them along to Yasiel Puig. Meanwhile, Richards backs off. With all of his talent, he's only 26. Garrett ready, and the 2-1 pitch on the way. Fastball lifted back a third, down the line, high enough for somebody to get under it, and that somebody is the left fielder Josh Hamilton. So the Dodgers go 1-2-3 in direct contrast to the Angels, who sent 8 men to the plate. And at the end of an inning, Angels 4, Dodgers nothing. As we go to the second inning, it'll be Garrett Richards and Cole Calhoun and Mike Trout. Big crowd, very close to capacity. If I say June 6th, I think of D-Day, the invasion of Europe in 1944. Baseball people say the Angels have played a little bit better since June 6th against the Dodgers. And the pitch to Garrett Richards, low and away, ball one, 1-0. By the way, we were talking about Zach Greinke throwing 2 wild pitches to give him 10. Garrett Richards has 19. He swings and doesn't get it, and they count 1 ball and 1 strike. So Zach trying to settle down. Boy, he was hit by lightning. Calhoun single, Trout double, Pujols double. It was 2-0 Angels, and he had made 6 pitches. The Calhoun waiting on deck. Then Hamilton grounded out, but then the wild pitches occurred. The error by Ramirez and the base hit by David Freese for the 4th run. 2 balls and 1 strike to Garrett Richards. Richards, throwing 99-98, is a strikeout pitcher. Greinke's fastball is swung on and missed. Richards had a pretty good swing at that thing. 2-2 the count. Dodgers fully aware of the fact it's posted on the right field wall. They can look at it all night from the dugout. Giants 4 and the Mets 3. Giants came from behind. They were trailing 2-0. Giants got well in New York, taking 3 out of 4. Among other things, Buster Posey walked 4 times. Each time they walked Buster to face Pablo Sandoval, and Sandoval had 3 hits, including a pair of 2-out doubles for 3 of the Giants' 4 runs. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. Richards swings and misses, and down he goes. So 1 away. The batter now will be Cole Calhoun. 4-0 Angels. The Angels have won 66 games. The Dodgers have won 63. The Angels are in a stretch of playing 20 straight against American League teams above 500. That would be since the break. And they have won 9 and lost 7. The Dodgers, in their string, 27 of 30 against teams above 500. They are 8-4. And the pitch now to Cole Calhoun, missing for ball 1. Calhoun hit the ball into left field. A diving try by Crawford. It was a trap. Though Calhoun had a base hit. No balls and 1 strike to count. Calhoun broke in with the Angels 2 years ago. Got a base hit in his 2nd big league at bat. And of course, among other things, it was a double. And they got the ball. And of course, ball players are ball players. So the first thing they did, they had a ball and presented it to him. His name was misspelled. The date was incorrect. They had everything wrong on the ball. Calhoun takes high. And then they started laughing and they gave him the original ball. Boys will be boys. 4-0 Angels. Calhoun, a tough hombre with Mike Trout hitting behind him. Calhoun has certainly paid the price of a lot of injuries. All started a year ago. The 1-2 pitch swung on, line to left. Crawford has a play this time. Reaches up to make the catch. And we have 2 down in the 2nd inning. The batter now, Mike Trout. Those of us in the National League who do not have much of an opportunity to see him, though we've all been looking forward to it. The other nicest thing about Mike Trout, and in talking not just to players but to those media who follow the team, they say he is a great kid. Just the nicest, the most polite. He gives more autographs than anybody else. He'll autograph till the last man is standing. Mike takes a strike. We were mentioning the fact that he's much bigger than Mantle. 6'1", 235. Mickey was 5'11", 195. Of course, Mantle had an incredible year, 18 years. And you only hope and pray that Mike will have a career like that as he takes a 2nd strike. One of the things you have to remember about Mantle, too, he not only hit 536 home runs in his great career, he walked 100 times, 10 years. The pitch is swung on and missed. Trout strikes out. He's going to be out at first on the throw from Ellis. So Greinke does a complete about face, but the question is, can the Dodgers recover? Because at the end of an inning and a half, Angels 4, Dodgers nothing. Four to nothing, bottom of the second inning. Reminder, bring the family to Dodger Stadium Sunday, August 17th, 1:10 p.m. And the first 15,000 kids, 14 and under in attendance, receive their own Dodger lunchbox, compliments of Farmer John. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Sunday, the 17th, first place Milwaukee Brewers will be here. Talking about first place, Dodgers are in first place, for the moment leading the Giants by 2. The Angels have spent 0 days in first place. 83 days the Angels have been in second place. 1 game behind a terrific Oakland club. So they're going to be a great race in that division as Mike Scioscia and the rest of the boys try to get closer and closer, and they're off to a good start tonight. Richards normally has his most problems in the first inning. He's working to Ramirez. He set the Dodgers down in order on 11 pitches in the first inning. This year, he's allowed 14 runs in the first and nothing close to that. Well, maybe 10 runs in the third. 1 ball and no strikes to Hanley Ramirez, hitting .273. Hanley takes a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike. Ramirez, 12 home runs, 56 runs batted in. Amazing the years that he is such a fine hitter, all those years he played. And the other night against the Cubs, that hanging curveball that he hit to the back of the Dodger bullpen was his first career walk-off home run. 1-1 pitch, fastball down and away. That was 97. And the count 2 balls and 1 strike. Some notes on Garrett Richards. As you can understand, he is a strikeout pitcher. He didn't get a strikeout in the first inning tonight. 30 of his strikeouts have come in the first inning. 2-1 pitch is swung on, banged into right center for a base hit. It's going to be cut off by Cole Calhoun, who gets it back in over second base, but the ball is backed up. A long single for Hanley Ramirez, and that'll bring up Matt Kemp. So Hanley Ramirez, high fastball, he ropes that thing into right center. Calhoun did a good job to get over and cut it off before it got to the wall and left-handed it back into the infield. So with Ramirez getting a base hit, the player of the week, Matt Kemp, coming up. For the last 2 weeks, 13 games, Matt hitting .408, so that got his average up now to .285. 13 home runs, 49 runs batted in, and it really all coincided with his move to right field. So Matt checking in. Richards out of his stretch. Right-hander pauses, comes to his hitter, high and inside, ball one, 1-0. If you match up Clayton Kershaw and Matt Kemp, the player of the month or pitcher of the month and player of the week, the Dodgers with some standout players. Of course, right now, all of the Dodgers in the shadows, 4-0 Angels, bottom of the second inning. Garrett Richards out of a set. Looks over at first. Ramirez, very short lead. Pitch to Kemp, and that's a little high, ball two. So Matt trying to extend the inning, get something going. Carl Crawford hitting back of him. 4 runs, 4 hits for the Angels. No runs, 1 hit, 1 error for the Dodgers. Garrett Richards has won 11 games, 11-4, and he's been able to win on the road as well. 6 of his victories on the road. Pujols holding a corner on Ramirez, who barely gets off the bag, especially down 4-0. 2-0 pitch on the way. Matt takes tight to the thighs, ball 3. Well, with Matt Kemp, he had a 3-0 base hit recently. That was in the 4th inning against the Cubs. Carl Crawford waits on deck. So we'll see. They might green light Matt, but he's only going to swing if it's a pitch he feels he can drive. Richards, a high set 3-0 pitch is taken inside, ball 4. So the Dodgers get a base hit by Ramirez, a walk to Kemp. Carl Crawford coming up with Juan Uribe behind him. You see hitters coming up and you automatically think about a possible home run. However, Garrett Richards is number 1. He has the lowest rate of home runs allowed to plate appearances. It's a little less than 1%. So Richards posing a huge problem for the Dodgers. 2 on, nobody out. Angels lead 4-0. Richards, who could be wild once in a while. Right-hander ready and delivers. Crawford hits it foul off the railing of the Angel dugout. We mentioned earlier that Richards does have 19 wild pitches. He has 11 4-pitch walks. So every now and then he has to wrestle his control. He's a pretty good ground ball pitcher. Here's the strike 1 pitch, sprayed foul off third down the line. 0-2 to Crawford. Carl has really been fighting it. Going on the DL was one thing. Coming off the DL, he just has had no success at all. So Richards looks down the barrel to get a sign. No balls and 2 strikes. 4-0 Angels, second inning. Dodgers at first and second and nobody out. Strike 2 pitch on the way. Crawford fouls that one away off to the left. Still no balls and 2 strikes. Richards appears to be working better with Hank Conger rather than with Chris Iannetta. You always compare the ERA with the 2 catchers. Here's the strike 2 pitch coming on, and it's swung on and missed, and down goes Crawford, who is in the midst of a terrible slump. So 1 away, and Juan Uribe coming up. Talking about the catchers in the ERA. This year, his ERA with Conger is 1.4. His ERA last year with Iannetta was 3.9. So Crawford, what is there to say? He strikes out, and with one down, here's Juan Uribe. Uribe hitting .297, 5 home runs, 31 runs batted in. Dodger production in left field has really gone way down. Ethier doesn't play, and Crawford is really struggling. So the first pitch to Uribe is swung on a high fly ball down the left field line. Hamilton in the corner in foul ground. Makes the catch in front of the stands. He was in foul ground by a few feet, and the ball never had enough behind it to reach the seats. So Uribe, a long foul ball out into the left field corner. Hamilton had plenty of time to see where he was. Caught it just at the crease where the wall begins to bend towards the foul pole. So he had plenty of room and handled it very well. Those size 18s moved very well getting him over there. So Hanley stands at second. He led off with a single. Kemp followed with a walk, but nothing has changed except 2 outs. A.J. Ellis batting .194. Garrett Richards' fastball is low, ball 1-0. We were talking about left field not being very productive. The Dodger catchers have both been struggling. Butera hitting .199 and A.J. Ellis .194. Of course, what they contribute behind the plate is a lot more important usually than what they do at the bat. The 1-0 pitch inside, ball 2. A.J. with a bad knee, his right knee. He took 2 serious foul balls right off the top of the right knee. He just couldn't play the last 2 days, but he's back in there tonight. Figured he'll also catch Kershaw tomorrow night. 2-0 pitch on the way. Richard delivers and gets it in there. 2-1. It's 4-0 Angels. If you joined us late, Calhoun singled. Trout doubled him home. Pujols doubled Holt Trout. After Hamilton grounded out, Ibar aboard on a fielder's choice. Then there was a wild pitch for a run. There was a wild pitch and an error and another base hit for the 4th run. The fastball high and inside. A.J. just did get out of the way of that thing. 3-1 the count. In looking at Garrett, it should be duly noted, since that pitch got away from him, he has hit 7 batters. And he hit him or just missed hitting him with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. So 3-1 the count to A.J. Ellis. Conger shuffling cards. Catcher is set and ready, pitching to the outside part of the plate, but he's high and inside, ball 4. That is the other thing for Garrett Richards. He throws very hard, but he's also inclined to get wild. Mike Butcher, who has done so much to help him in his development, going out to the mound to talk to him. So Zach Greinke, who's not a bad hitting pitcher, coming up with 2 out and the bases loaded. Zach Greinke with the bat has a half a dozen hits, 1 run batted in. What makes him a tough hitting pitcher is the fact he's had about 47 plate appearances, and he's only struck out 9 times. So if you hit the ball, you have a chance. And here comes Greinke. Dodgers have Hanley Ramirez at third, Matt Kemp at second. Now they have Ellis at first. And Greinke checking in. 4-0 Angels, 2 out, bases loaded for the Dodgers. Bottom of the 2nd inning. Garrett will pitch out of a stretch with the bases loaded. And the 6'3" right-hander set. And the first pitch to Zach Greinke, swung on and lifted to shallow right. Hesitating is Calhoun, but now he comes up for it and makes the catch. So Greinke doesn't hang around trying to get a strike on the first pitch, and he flies to right. Dodgers lead 3, and at the end of 2, 4-0 Angels. 4-0 lead as we go to the third. For the Angels, Pujols, Hamilton, and Ibar in that order. Zach Greinke trying to recover from the shock of the first inning. 3 consecutive hits, including back-to-back doubles. There was an error. There were 2 wild pitches. And by the time the so-called dust settled, it was 4 for the Angels. Pujols doubled after Trout had doubled, after Calhoun had singled. So here we go again. Albert, who was stepped on inadvertently by Puig, making his way up to the plate. Pujols has had enough foot trouble, and luckily Puig stepped on the heel of the shoe and almost took the shoe off. Certainly inadvertently, and Albert visiting with A.J. Ellis before getting in. So Albert Pujols hitting .274. 20 home runs, 67 runs batted in, picked up number 68. Hits a soft line drive, speared by Hanley Ramirez. Ball was not hit hard. Hanley able to just move over and pick it off.
The plate, left fielder, Josh Hamilton.
So 5 in a row retired now by Zach Greinke, but again is the horse down the road as Josh Hamilton checks in. Hamilton grounded out. Gonzalez to Greinke covering. 1 out, third inning, 4-0 Angels. Zach Greinke delivers. First pitch swung on and missed. In the all-time so-called freeway series, the Angels have beaten the Dodgers 56 times, and the Dodgers have beaten the Angels 40 times. And again, we told you, Mike Scioscia needs a victory to get to 1,300 in his managerial career. The strike one pitch on the way. Greinke delivers high and tight, 1-1. Hitting behind Hamilton, Eric Ibar. Greinke pauses for the moment. Now it comes back 1-1. A change, and Hamilton way out in front of it. And a 1-ball, 2-strike count. Hamilton, talking about the velocity of pitches, when he was in high school, they say he would throw 94 to 96 miles an hour as a left-hander. But they like the bat even more so. He was a left-handed catcher at one time as he chases a pitch and strikes out. So Josh, who has a lot of talent, goes down swinging. 2 out in the third. Third strikeout for Greinke. Hamilton comes up empty, and the batter now, Eric Ibar. Ibar does a lot of wonderful things, and one of the things, he is a very good bunter. So Uribe has to play in on the grass at third. Ibar has 7 bunt singles. Greinke's pitch, full swing, ground ball to short. Hanley Ramirez picks it up, and that's that. So Greinke has found his rhythm. He's retired 7 in a row, but is it too late? At the end of 2.5 innings, Angels 4, Dodgers nothing. And at Dodger Stadium, we had a sellout. We have some pretty big crowds of late. In fact, in the Cubs series following the Braves, we had 51,000 in the Braves. Cubs came in, and we got as high as 53,000 in the Cubs series. And tonight with the Angels here, it's another big crowd. Like most of us, driven back by the Angels' quick, almost knockout punches against Greinke. By the way, Greinke has now retired 7 in a row, but it's 4-0 Angels, and into the bottom of the third inning we go. Gordon hit back to the box in the first inning. 1 ball and no strikes. Dodgers loaded the bases in the second inning, which is the worst thing they can do. The 1-0 pitch is in for a strike, 1-1. The Dodgers are last in the major leagues when they load the bases. They're hitting 157 with the bases loaded. Here's the 1-1 pitch on the way. Fastball low, chased and missed. 1-2 the count. So Richards, he got into a little bit of trouble. Couple of walks and a base hit in the second inning, but he survived it nicely. Garrett checking with Conger, and his 1-2 pitch, fastball high and away. That thing took off at 98. He has a sinking fastball along with a 4-seamer, slider, curve, and change. His slider is compared to the one that John Smoltz had, and that was fierce. 2-2 pitch on the way. Fastball again high at 98. Haven't seen him throw a changeup yet. Yasiel Puig on deck. Usually if Richards is going to throw a change, it would be to a left-hand batter. Garrett leading 4-0. And the right-hander goes 3-2. And a pitch is swung on and missed at 98. A questionable pitch as to whether it was in the strike zone or not. Doesn't make any difference. Gordon went after it. So 1 away, and Yasiel Puig coming up. Puig grounded to short in the first inning. Almost took Pujols' shoe off when he inadvertently stepped on his heel at first. Yasiel batting .322, 13 home runs, 55 runs batted in. 4 runs, 4 hits for the Angels, no runs, 1 hit for the Dodgers. Puig takes ball 1. The Dodger hit a leadoff single by Hanley Ramirez in the second inning when they made the mistake of loading the bases. Puig followed by Gonzalez. Now Yasiel asking for time and backs out. Manny Gonzalez, the plate umpire, umpiring for his 3rd year. He's from Venezuela, and he became the first Venezuelan umpire to work a regular season game in the major leagues. Pitches outside, then picks up the corner. 1-1 the count. Puig, I think, thought that was out of the zone, but one thing about Yasiel, he is so outgoing. I have not seen him argue with an umpire. It was a questionable call, but he never said a word. I think he originally took the advice of Mike Brito. I remember Brito talking to him when he first arrived, and one of the commandments were you do not argue with the umpire, and he never had. 2-1 pitch is chased and missed. That was the slider down and away. That was at 88 miles an hour. As we said, he's got a great one. Two balls and 2 strikes to Yasiel Puig. Dodgers trying to hang on. They're 2.5 in front of the Giants, but the Giants won today. Beat the Mets 4-3 to win 3 out of 4. 2-2 pitch is called, strike 3, and Yasiel walks away empty-handed. So back-to-back strikeouts on a fastball around the knees. That would be strikeout number 3 for the right-hander, Garrett Richards. And the batter now, Adrian Gonzalez. who flied to left field in the first inning. Garrett Richards staring down the line, getting a sign. Right-handed delivers, swung on and missed, 0-1. There are a lot of folks watching and listening to the game who might not know that once upon a time the Angels played here at Dodger Stadium. Yep. When they first came into being, you might not even know there was a Wrigley Field here in Los Angeles. Pitch off the plate, 1-1. The Angels played at Wrigley Field and they broke a record. Not the Angels, but Wrigley Field. 248 home runs were hit in Wrigley Field. That set an all-time record. So then they wanted to move to the Coliseum. The 1-1 pitch is fouled away. But before they could move from Wrigley Field to the Coliseum, the commissioner said, no more Wrigley Field. We're going to set dimensions for a major league park. Well, they couldn't play in the Coliseum with those dimensions, so they were forced to come and play here. And of course they hated playing at Dodger Stadium because they were newborn. Change is high. So you can imagine the Angels trying to promote, come to our games at Dodger Stadium. Well, that didn't work. Not for them anyway. So when the Angels were here, all of the publicity was, come to Chavez Ravine, never Dodger Stadium. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. Adrian swings, doesn't get it. It's picked up by Conger, and he strikes out the side. So the Dodgers have now struck out 4 times. A very quiet 3 for them with only 1 hit. And the Angels steaming along, leading 4-0. He's a 2-time All-Star, Cy Young and Silver Slugger Award winner. So be one of the first 50,000 fans in attendance Wednesday, August 20th, and you'll receive a Zach Greinke bobblehead, compliments of Las Vegas. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. August the 20th, a Wednesday night, the Dodgers playing San Diego. Zach pushed around in the first inning, as so not often happens, but it does happen a lot. First inning can be a horror. He has settled in since. He has retired 7 in a row. His first pitch to Howie Kendrick, in for a single. Kendrick hit a ground ball. Hanley Ramirez picked it up and threw it away. On the error, the run scored. Strike 1 pitch, check swing. They're going to look at first. No swing, says Chris Siegel. 1 ball and 1 strike. Howie Kendrick is right up there in his collection of base hits. He has 1,146 in his career. That's for second baseman. Robinson Cano 1785. But Kendrick certainly in the top 10 with people like Cano and Chase Utley, Brandon Phillips, and others. Has always been a good hitter. 2-1 pitch is swung on. Leaping catch by Hanley Ramirez. Ball was not hit that hard. He was still able to go up the ladder and take care of it. So 1 away.
Batting next, third baseman, number 6, David Freese.
1 down. David Freese coming up. David started off pretty slowly for the Angels, hitting in the 250s, 6 home runs, 38 runs batted in. But of those 38 RBIs, 20 are in the last 30 games. And that includes tonight when he singled in the first inning to pick up a run. So David Freese, 1 ball and no strikes. Greinke looks down the barrel to get a sign. 1 out. As a 1-hopper backhanded by Ramirez, staggered but still throws it away on a low throw to Adrian Gonzalez. So Hanley Ramirez having a lot of trouble throwing one away in the air and throwing that one in the dirt. The Freese is at second base. So far it has been a nightmare game for the Dodgers and a lovely evening for the Angels. Adrian trying to scoop it on 1 hop and couldn't do it. To Hanley, E6, 2 errors. And the batter, Hank Conger. Conger trying to pick him up with 1 out. Greinke will look back at second. And the first pitch to Conger outside, ball 1. Hank Conger was inspired, understandably so, when Chan Ho Park played here for the Dodgers, the first Korean player. That meant a great deal to Hank Conger, who is Korean. His real name, and he hits a hopper to the right side to Gordon. Conger's real name, Hyun, as David Freese takes third. The inning should be over. He was named Hank by his grandfather in honor of Henry Aaron. His grandfather said he couldn't pronounce Hyun. So if his grandfather couldn't do it, I'm not going to even try. He's Hank. 2 down instead of 3. And Garrett Richards, the batter. That error by Ramirez, you might think, well, that's nothing. The pitcher's coming up, 2 out. But what it does do is get Richards out of the way as he hits a little ground ball instead of Richards leading off the inning. So a little ground ball to Gordon. So at the end of 3.5 innings, 4-0 Angels. Chrysler 200, America's import. Bottom of the fourth inning, sunset time in Los Angeles. Angels leading 4-0. Dodgers will have Hanley Ramirez, followed by Matt Kemp, and then Carl Crawford. Garrett Richards has been tough as expected, a little bit on the wild side, but he's only allowed 1 hit. He has walked 2 and he has struck out 4. The only hit for the Dodgers, Ramirez, a line drive single to right. So Garrett Richards getting ready for game 1. Tomorrow night it'll be Clayton Kershaw and Hector Santiago. Then the scene will turn to Anaheim, Dan Haren and Matt Shoemaker, and the concluding game, Hyun-Jin Ryu against C.J. Wilson. So Ramirez ready to come up, followed by Kemp and Crawford. Garrett Richards has taken his warm-up tosses, and Hanley slowly making his way up to face Garrett Richards. Richards on the grass behind the mound as Hanley steps in and backs out. Now Richards is on top. Hanley's out of the box. And they will now hook up. Right. 0-1. Thanks to Mike Butcher and others, Garrett Richards' delivery has really smoothed out compared to the herky-jerky delivery that he had. When he was herky-jerky, throwing across his body a great deal, he was averaging almost 5 walks per 9 innings. They've done a good job cutting that down. Chopper comebacker, and Richards stays with it and makes the play. So a good play by Garrett Richards. Ramirez on a comebacker, and we have 1 away here in the 4th inning. Threw his glove up in front of his face, thank goodness, and was able to make the play. At 6'3" and 215, complete follow through. His bare hand was in front of his face, and then he got the gloved hand up just in time. So 1 away. Good play by Garrett. Here's Matt Kemp, who walked in the 2nd inning. 4-0 Angels. 1 out, 4th. Foul back. 0-1. Matt, the player of the week. For him, it just seemed all the pieces fell into place when he took over where it all began for him in right field. 0-1. Matt walked on 4 pitches in the 2nd inning. No balls, 1 strike. That's on the corner. Good pitch for Garrett Richards. No balls and 2 strikes. Although Richards does throw across his body, it adds to deception, but it also puts a little extra strain on his shoulder. 0-2. Down and away. One and 2 to count to Matt. Waiting on deck, Carl Crawford. And waved at his idea of a change, I think. 87 miles an hour is a changeup when you're throwing 99. So 2 out here in the 4th inning. That would be the 5th strikeout for Garrett Richards. And the batter is Carl Crawford, who is really hungry for a base hit. Garrett Richards is high in strikeouts. He struck 11 Astros out, ball one. He is 5 so far tonight. He also struck out 10 Braves. 5 so far. And that's going to be hit into right field for a base hit. So a 2-out single with the bases empty, and the batter is Juan Uribe. That's hit number 2 against Garrett Richards. Uribe hitting .296, fouled out to Josh Hamilton, who made a nice play in foul ground, the crease of the wall just outside the left field foul line, foul pole as well. Breaking ball. 0-1 the count. Uribe 5 home runs, 31 runs batted in. Uribe has only played in 71 games. Dodgers have played 112. And that's going to get away from Conger. And down to second base goes Crawford. We'll assume it's a wild pitch. Remember, he had 19 wild pitches coming into the game. So it's a reasonable assumption. And that's what it will be. 20 wild pitches. Yu Darvish, Felix Hernandez, Edinson Volquez, they all have 13. But Garrett has 20. So the Dodgers trying to get on the board. They have Crawford at second with 2 out. 1-1 to Juan Uribe. Fastball inside. 2-1. Right fielder Cole Calhoun deep in right. Uribe goes that way a lot. 2-1. Fastball hit the short. That Gold Glove down there, high bar, doesn't miss many. So Uribe grounds to short. The Dodgers lead Crawford, and at the end of 4, before a sellout crowd, it's 4-0 Angels. Join us on the next episode of Backstage Dodgers. Our cameras take a behind-the-scenes look at the series with the Braves. Don't miss this new episode of Backstage Dodgers. That'll be Thursday at 5 right here on Sportsnet LA. We move to the 5th inning. It'll be the top of the order. Cole Calhoun, Mike Trout, Albert Pujols, Calhoun single to left and fly to left. Sinking line drive. Carl Crawford made a diving attempt and trapped it. And then Trout doubled in a run. And then Pujols doubled in a run. And the Angels were off to the races. Greinke ready. Starts a change at 72 miles an hour. 1 ball and no strikes to Cole. He went to Arizona State because his grandfather lived in Tempe and wanted to see him play all the time. That's just off the corner. 2 balls and no strikes to Cole Calhoun. Two and one. Last year, Calhoun was on the DL. He had a fractured right hamate bone in his right hand that required surgery. And then in April of this year, he twisted his right ankle. It was diagnosed as a sprained ligament, and he went back out on the DL. He's a good bunter. That's why Uribe is playing on the edge of the grass at third. 2-1 the count to Cole Calhoun. And ball 3. Calhoun hitting .282. He has Mike Trout behind him and then Albert Pujols. Calhoun has 11 home runs, 32 RBIs, and you can just imagine with those two behind him, he sees a lot of fastballs. 3-1. Chopper to Gonzalez. Throw one away. So Greinke is pitching the way you expected him to pitch. The only man to get aboard since the first inning was Freese on the error. So if you counted that for an out, which it wasn't, but if you did, you'd get the idea. 2, 5, 8, about 12 in a row, 13 in a row. However, he gave up the 4 in the first inning, and here's Mike Trout. One of the stories they tell about young Mike was when he first came to spring training. He takes a change for a strike, and about 9 veterans on the team took him out to dinner over in Arizona and Scottsdale to a very swanky steakhouse. And it was spring training, and the veterans would have a little wine with their meal, etc. And the bill got to be $1,800, about $180 a piece for the players. And who do you think they gave the bill to? Mike Trout. And he looked at a $1,800 bill, and the first thing he did was call his home. Said, what am I going to do? Well, his mother said, use your card, your credit card. And although it took a lot of fuss, he finally signed, and the restaurant accepted the card. And about a day or two later, Mike Trout went to get dressed for an exhibition game, and there was a large-sized Tonka toy truck, and it was full of 7,200 quarters. So if you divided the 7,200 quarters, he got his $1,800 back the hard way. Mike Trout. They only tease you if they like you. Fastball at the knuckles, 1-2. Rookie of the Year in 2012. And he's just going to set up. You know, he's such a natural. He bowled a 286 game. Not 300, but 286. Terrific. 2-2. Mike, with all of his abilities, he will be 24 on Friday. In fact, check me. He's going to be 24 in Anaheim with the Dodgers Thursday night. So I would imagine they will have something to do with a happy birthday to Mike Trout. Rookie of the Year. He hit for the cycle last year against Seattle. When he was in high school, he pitched a no-hitter. And line drive is stolen by Juan Uribe. Wow. So the ball was scorched, and how Uribe could react that quickly, only another major leaguer would know. That was a blur, and Uribe went up and snared it. So Mike Trout almost breaks the ball for an out. Uribe making a dazzling play. And now here's Albert Pujols, who doubled and popped up. Just to conclude the thought on Mike Trout, August the 7th, he will be 23. And he is just starting. 1 ball, no strikes. 1-1. Albert Pujols double, popped up. Fouls that one off the back foot. That doesn't happen too often to big leaguers. Remember, he almost lost a shoe when Puig stepped on him. Albert with 512 home runs. He just passed my all-time idol, Melvin Thomas Ott of the New York Giants, with 511. Huge numbers with the Cardinals. 2-1. And that's going to be sliced a little bit, but Puig is over there to snare it. So 1-2-3, thanks to Juan Uribe, who made a dazzling catch on that bullet off the bat of Mike Trout. And we go to the bottom of the 5th, and it's still 4-0 Angels. MLB TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, is celebrating 12 years. Join the millions of subscribers. Watch every out-of-market game live in true HD on over 400 devices. Visit Dodgers.com for details. Bottom of the 5th inning, it's 4-0 Angels. It's been that way since the 1st inning. Garrett Richards has allowed just 2 hits. Got a little wild and walked 2 in the 2nd inning, but he has struck out 5. A.J. Ellis, then Zach Greinke, and D. Gordon. As the game moves along, it's interesting to see the progression of Garrett Richards. First time through the lineup, he's allowed 4 home runs and a .202 batting average. Second time through the lineup, no home runs and a 199 batting average. And the third time through the lineup, and that's he's second time with Ellis, but then it'll be third when you get back up to the top, hitting 191 and 1 home run. So 4-0 in the first inning, and Richards is really in control. Dodgers with 2 hits. Ramirez singled and Crawford singled. One and two as he misses by 98. That's right, 98 miles an hour. He's hit 99 tonight. Ellis almost got hit by about a 98 mile an hour fastball. 1 and 2. Fastball hit to right center and deep on his horse's Trout to make the one-hand catch. So Mike Trout takes an extra base hit away from A.J. Ellis. Got a good jump. Made it look easy. Ball didn't have a chance to go out, but it certainly had a chance to hit the wall on the fly, but Trout's glove was right there. 1 away. So a nice play by the big young center fielder, and the batter now Zach Greinke. Greinke flied to right in the second inning. First ball swinging then with the bases loaded, and first ball swinging now. That fastball was 99. I think Greinke had something to say to Hank Conger. 0-1. Four runs, 4 hits for the Angels. No runs, 2 hits for the Dodgers before a sold-out crowd. High fly ball to center. Trout going back, but he has it all the way. 2 fly balls to Mike Trout, and the batter now will be Dee Gordon. Dee Gordon hit back to the box and struck out. 0 for 2. For Dee Gordon, the night began in a rather bizarre moment as he collided with second base umpire Jim Reynolds and was knocked sprawling. Albert Pujols had doubled in the action on the infield, and Dee was down. He wasn't involved in the play. That's a strike. 0-1. Dodgers thoroughly mesmerized, or maybe overwhelmed, by Garrett Richards so far. No balls, 1 strike. Off speed, off the plate. Boy, that is a changeup from 99 to 79. And that's in there. 1 and 2. Richards doesn't give up very many home runs. He's allowed only 5. No to Conger. No to Conger. That's 3 no's, 4 no's, 5 no's. Okay, I agree. And Gordon chasing a pitch almost in the dirt. And down he goes. So that's 6 strikeouts for Garrett Richards. At the end of 5, it's 4-0 Angels. grand slam home run in the 9th inning? Well, it happened to Pee Wee Reese, the captain of the Dodgers, in the Polo Grounds in New York. What made it even sweeter, it was against the New York Giants. However, time never figures in baseball, except in 1942, the country was at war and there was a curfew. And the grand slam was hit right after the curfew had been invoked. So they took the grand slam away. Instead of winning the game 4-1, it wound up a 1-1 tie. Pee Wee, however, did manage to have 6 grand slams in his colorful and wonderful career. Let's go back to this one. Josh Hamilton to lead it off, 4-0, favor of the Angels. 1 ball and no strikes. Hamilton grounded to Gonzalez and struck out. 4 runs, 4 hits for the Angels. No runs, 2 hits for the Dodgers. 1 ball and 1 strike to Josh Hamilton. We're talking about Mike Trout. Hamilton was rather phenomenal as a kid, an athlete. We told you he won a national tournament's MVP. He was a left-handed catcher. He was an outfielder in high school, and they say that he was throwing 94 and 96. Change, 3-1. They say that Josh Hamilton would always lead his league, if there was such a category, in autographs signed. He and Mike Trout, I guess, would tie in that area. 3-2. What happened was when Josh Hamilton was in high school, Tony Gwynn came to a hitting camp in North Carolina, and Tony signed his shirt and said to him, "Hey, how you doing?" And Hamilton was overwhelmed by the fact that an all-star would say, "How you doing?" And this time he says, "How you doing?" with a towering drive to right center field, and somebody's going to autograph that ball. 5-0 in favor of the Angels. For Josh Hamilton, that would be his 8th home run, 35 runs batted in. So you get the feeling the Dodgers have not been in the game at all ever since the Angels got 4 in the first inning, and Greinke let one get out over the plate, and Hamilton was not about to let that thing get away. So he autographed it into the bleachers, and it's 5-0 Angels. Greinke hits himself in the head with the glove. Now muttering to himself, and Hamilton talking to Cole Halcoon down in the dugout. Ball 1. In case you wonder about it, Greinke has given up 14 home runs. And that's going down the right field line, hooking, foul. We began the evening by telling you about how effective Greinke has been in his career at Dodger Stadium. In 23 previous starts, he's 14-3, and the Dodgers are 19-4 in his games. That might change tonight, down 5-0. Facing the tough right-hander Garrett Richards. And Conger and Calhoun. Angels flying high. 2 balls, 1 strike. And that's a line drive base hit off the bat of Eric Ibar. One thing you would like, win or lose, a sellout crowd. It's like watching your children performing. You hope they do better than they would do, let's say, on other circumstances. So here with a full-out crowd, the Dodgers hoping to entertain. But so far, it's been all Angels. Even for you, young man.
Go, baby!
So here's Kendrick, reached on an error. Looped out to Ramirez. I've always admired Kendrick's ability to hit. Fouled away. 1 ball and 1 strike. Hard to believe Howie Kendrick was a freshman in college and he was cut from the baseball team. They didn't think he had enough ability to play college ball. He had 297 last year, 287 the year before, 285 the year before. You're talking about a very good hitting second baseman who lines it at Ramirez. 1 out. The batter now will be David Freese. Single to right to drive in a run and reached on the throwing error by Hanley Ramirez, who has committed 2. The Dodgers have made 65 errors. The Angels have made 54. The Angels have 111 home runs. The Dodgers have 85. That's a strike on a swing, charged to Freese. 0-1 to David. Take another look at the check swing. Looks like that bat passes the plate, and they'll call it every time. Freese, the MVP of the 2011 World Series, out of Corpus Christi, Texas, went to the University of South Alabama. And he drives one to center. Puig picks it off, gets it back in. Almost doubled up Ibar. That was a long throw from deep right center. He wasn't on the track, but watch. Look at the grass. And he's just on the grass and fires a strike to Adrian Gonzalez. Ibar back. Puig kind of shaking his finger at Ibar as if they, don't you try to take any liberties with me on the base pad. That reminds me of Gerardo Parra, who always does that when he played for Arizona. Ibar has stolen 12 out of 20. He has stolen as many as 30 in the big leagues for the Angels. Ball 1 to Hank Conger. Hank from Federal Way, Washington, but he lives in Huntington Beach. Actually, he grew up in Huntington Beach. Went to the high school there. Back in 2006, he was the Gatorade California Player of the Year. And he was a star when he was in high school. In fact, he was a star playing in Little League. He was on a team, Ocean View, California. He hit 34 home runs that year. And the team was 1 win shy of the 2000 Little League World Series. He made a deal with his mom about his future. The deal was, if he didn't get picked in the first round, he'd accept the full ride to the University of Southern California and for the time being put aside his dreams of professional baseball His mom said to him, "Son, they don't pick up high school catchers in the first round." Even though he was selected first round, his mom thought, "I still wish he had gone to college." 3-1 the count. Having trouble with his name, Hyun. His mom's name, Eun. Three balls and one strike. By the way, his father is Yun with the runner going foul ball. So we'll need a lesson in Korean. Hyun, Eun, Yun. Mr. Conger, Mr. and Mrs. Conger, and their son Hank. 5 runs, 6 hits for the Angels. They look great. Dodgers no runs, 2 hits, 2 errors. They look fill in the blank. Runner goes, and it's strike 3 called. However, 1 run, the home run by Josh Hamilton. Puig had a little fun in center field, but that's about all. And at the end of 5 1/2, it's 5-0 Angels, and nobody's laughing. Try this month's $6 featured footlong, the barbecued oven roasted chicken melt. Subway.
Leading off the bottom of the 6th for the Dodgers.
The 6th inning, Yasiel Puig followed by Adrian Gonzalez and Hanley Ramirez. The wild horse in many ways has been just that tonight and yesterday. Going down to first base, trying as hard as he can to beat the throws. Not really his fault, but inadvertently he stepped on the toes of Rizzo and the shoe of Albert Pujols. Neither man seriously hurt. Pujols, I think, almost came out of his right shoe. A downward blow to the heel. And now here he comes. Yasiel Puig grounded to short and struck out. Hamilton hit a home run in the 6th inning. He was 1 for 24 against Zach Greinke. Well, it's been that kind of a night for Zach. Meanwhile, here's Puig. Show you how tough Garrett Richards is. When the count goes 2 balls and 1 strike, you have to believe the hitter is at a pretty good advantage. Fouled away. Well, this year, on a 2-ball 1 strike count, the opposing hitters are batting 147. against Garrett Richards. They have only 5 hits against him. Quite a young pitcher. He's 11-4. And that's going to be punched right to Howie Kendrick. I knew before the game some of our friends, the media with the Angels, and they were saying it's a shame that Garrett Richards wasn't matched up against Clayton Kershaw. But that's how the rotation turns out. He was against Greinke. Kershaw tomorrow night against Hector Santiago. Dan Haren against Matt Shoemaker in Anaheim, followed by Hyun-Jin Ryu and C.J. Wilson on Thursday on Mike Trout's birthday. So here's Gonzalez, fly to left, struck out. Richards has struck out 5. The Dodgers loaded the bases in the second inning. That's their only look at the game. Greinke walked up with 2 out, bases loaded, swung at the first pitch, and hit a fly ball to right field. 1-1. The Dodgers haunted now, I'm sure, by their inability to do anything with the bases loaded. They're last in the major leagues. They're hitting collectively 157 with the bases loaded. Fastball away, but at 97, it probably looked reasonably good to take a shot at it. 1-2 the count. Looked like it was out of the strike zone up here. But Adrian will hit the same pitch for a base hit to left. Conger sitting outside. Fouled away. Still 1-2. Well, all the numbers are more than believable. You know, Garrett Richards had 3 starts against National League teams, and his earned run average 0.4. 0.47 to be exact. That's a one hopper, and on it at second base, Howie Kendrick. Should the Dodgers fail to come from behind, and that's going to be like climbing Everest against Garrett Richards, the Dodger lead, which had been 3.5, will be 1.5, and 3 more left with the Angels, and then that tough road trip to Milwaukee and Atlanta, and then they come home to play Milwaukee. So for the moment, Giants won, and they trail by 2. Here's Hanley Ramirez, single to right, hit back to the box, 1 for 2. Tough night for Hanley. He's committed 2 errors. And ball 1. One and 1. That was a good slider down in the way. That's the one they compared to John Smoltz when he was with the Braves. It was a great pitch. You wonder how anybody can ever hit it. And it's usually at 88 miles an hour compared to a fastball that's been up to 99. One and 2. Slider again. Garrett Richards, a wonderful young pitcher. Garrett just turned 26, so he's going to be with the Angels for quite a while. Look at Conger off the plate again, and the pitch up and in. And a little ground ball to Kendrick. So 3 very quiet ground balls. The Dodgers tiptoe through the 6th, and at the end of 6, 5-0 Angels. By
Subway. Which of these movies did Bryan's quote?
is brought to you by Subway. Try this month's $6 featured footlong, the barbecued oven roasted chicken melt. Subway, eat fresh. And by your Southern California Mazda dealer. 7th inning, 5-0 Angels, and Garrett Richard will start it off. He'll be followed by Cole Calhoun and then Mike Trout. If anybody gets aboard, Albert Pujols. The Angels came in with a team batting average, just to compare the two, 264 to the Dodgers 258. Hopper up the middle, backhanded by Gordon, gets up and makes the play. So D. Gordon making another wonderful play to take a hit away from Garrett Richards, and 1 out in the 7th. The ball hit the side of the mound. That took a little steam out of it. If it misses the mound, that might be through, but D is able to catch up, and then, like on a turntable, he spins up and throws the strike. 1 away. Cole Calhoun, who started off the game, a sinker into left field. Crawford unable to catch it and went for a base hit. Then Trout hit one, a sinker again. Crawford tried to catch it, couldn't, and it went by him for a double. Calhoun scored. Then Pujols doubled to cash in Trout, and the next thing you know, it was 4-0 Angels. They've added 1 on the home run by Hamilton, and it's 5-0 Angels. We're in the 7th. No balls, 1 strike. Uribe in on the grass. Greinke throwing to the backstop, which reminds us he's had 2 wild pitches tonight. He was very unlike Zach Greinke in the first inning. After the first inning, he's allowed 1 run, 2 hits. The home run by Hamilton, and the base hit by Ibar. 1-1. Off speed and drops in nicely. The change. 1-2 to Cole Calhoun. Boy, that sure sounds like a name of somebody in a Western, with Mike Trout on deck. Two and two. All well put together, stocky, 5'10" and a good 200 pounds. Got him. So Calhoun doesn't make a fuss, just talks to himself. 2 out in the 7th, and the batter will be Trout. There it is.
Mike Trout.
Pretty hard to understand that they could boo Mike Trout, but you understand it's the rivalry, nothing else. Foul back. And a mixture of red and blue, and I'm sure we'll see that here and down in Anaheim. Capacity crowd tonight. Just off the corner. 1-1. Two balls, one strike. Trout has often been quoted as saying, it feels almost like I'm in a video game to realize that I'm playing in the major leagues. Even as a rookie, he got better in the game the longer the game went on. Big pop fly, Adrian Gonzalez. And that'll be that. So Trout pops it up. He's 1 for 4. Although the one time in the 5th inning, he almost took the glove of Juan Uribe. 5-0 Angels. Perhaps you could sum it up in one word: trouble. They have the Angels here tomorrow night. Then they go to Anaheim for 2. Then they play the first place Milwaukee Brewers. Then they go to Atlanta, where the Braves are so much better than they are on the road. Then they come home and play the first place Brewers here. Yes, trouble would be an understatement as they try to stay in first place. Their lead could be cut to 1.5 unless they come up with a great rally against a great young pitcher, Garrett Richards. It'll be Matt Kemp, Carl Crawford, Juan Uribe. The Dodgers limited to 2 singles. Ramirez a single in the 2nd inning, Crawford a single in the 4th. So here's Matt, who walked and struck out. Ball one. Carlos Frias is in the Dodger bullpen. That's right. Carlos Frias, long-legged right-hander, just called up. 1 ball and no strike. 1-1. So Zach Greinke downcast after that rough first inning. One and one. That slider down and away, and Matt going fishing, as we used to say as kids. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Just seems to avoid the bat. That's what makes it such a terrific pitch. It looks like a fastball. 1-2. And see you later. 7 strikeouts for Garrett Richards.
Number 3, Carl Crawford.
And the batter is Carl Crawford. Greinke has made 95 pitches in his 7 innings. 84 pitches made by Garrett Richards. Richards is unraveling a string. Crawford single, and the Dodgers have not been heard from since. 8 in a row. Ball one. Greinke talking to Rick Honeycutt. I mean, he was stunned and shocked in the first inning. In the blink of an eye. Calhoun single to left, Trout double to left for a run, Pujols double for another run. Then there were a couple of wild pitches, an error, a base hit, and before you had settled in, it was 4-0 Angels. Ground ball. Howie's in front of it. So with 2 out in the 7th inning, 9 in a row retired by the brilliant right-hander Garrett Richards. Uribe has fouled out to left, grounded to short. Did make a dazzling catch on that ball smashed off the bat of Mike Trout in the 5th inning. Interesting about Garrett Richards, the way he is striking out Dodgers. That's going to be a base hit despite the leap by Kendrick. Calhoun is up with it. So a 2-out single breaks the streak at 9.
Catcher number 17, A.J. Ellis.
The first 3 strikeouts occurred in the 2nd and 3rd innings. And the strikeout pitch, each hitter was 98 miles an hour. But since then, Kendrick throwing sliders mixed in with the fastball. The last 4 strikeouts, 87, 87, 1 at 89, and another 87. So he's got all of his pitches working. He has 7 strikeouts, and here's A.J. Ellis. Strike. Ellis walked in the 2nd inning. Fly to center in the 5th. Andre Ethier comes out on deck as a pinch hitter for Greinke with 2 out. Dan Herron talking to Greinke, and certainly Dan knows what it's like to be spun around. Herron, by the way, will be pitching game 3 in the series in Anaheim against Matt Shoemaker. 1 ball and 1 strike. One and 2. Richards, great control now. He lost it momentarily in the 2nd inning when he walked 2, but he hasn't come close to walking anybody since, and we have 2 out in the 7th. 1 and 2 to A.J. Ellis. Two and 2. Slider in the dirt. Richards has made 91 pitches. Made 98 pitches in a no decision with Seattle. Last time out 103. He came here with a 2-game losing streak, but he had won 7 straight before. Little note, a tough play now. In time. And Ibar alertly over to cover third. So Ellis, little roller, good play. Dodgers leave a runner, and at the end of 7, it's 5-0 Angels. Leading 5-0. A reminder, Sunday, August the 24th, Dodgers and Mets at 1:10, and the first 40,000 fans in attendance take home a Matt Kemp figurine presented by New Era. For tickets and more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Dodgers make 2 changes. The likable Justin Turner comes in to take over at third base for Juan Uribe. And the Dodgers' newest addition, Carlos Frias, coming up. He's from Nagua in the Dominican Republic. He is 6'4" and all legs, 175 pounds. He was signed by the Dodgers 6 years ago, worked his way up 4 years almost at Rancho Cucamonga. Eventually got to Albuquerque and Chattanooga. And with the Dodgers short in the bullpen, they have brought him up. Chris Perez on the DL with chips in his ankle. And, of course, you know about the injury to Paul Maholm. So, and a nice way to break in. Frias' first batter is Albert Pujols. Hello. Pujols has double, popped up, flied to center. So Zach Greinke went 7 and never recovered from the first inning. Ball 1 to Pujols. Pujols doubled in a run, scored a run, popped up, flied to center. Two and 0 the count. We're in the 8th inning. It's been all Angels. 5-0. Dodgers have gotten 1 man to third base. That's when they got a couple of walks in the 2nd inning. They loaded the bases but failed to score. Base hit. Frias can tell the grandkids, well, yes, the first batter I faced in the big leagues was Albert Pujols, and I held him to a single.
Left fielder number 32, Josh Hamilton.
So Albert is 2 for 4. And now Josh Hamilton. 5 runs, 6 hits charged to Greinke. He also had 2 wild pitches, yet he wasn't wild. He didn't walk anybody. Richards, meanwhile, sailing along, has made 92 pitches in his 7 innings. So Frias uncorks a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. 0-1. His fastball has been clocked as high as 96. He has a pretty good curveball and a straight change. And that's a high fly ball, but playable. Puig is there. Tagging up on him now is Pujols, and he's going to test him. And Albert is going to take the base on Puig. Oh, yes. Remember when Ibar was at first and Puig made the throw and shook his finger at him as if to say, don't you think? Well, Albert had been stepped on by Puig and now decides really to show him up. Puig kind of nonchalantly catching it and then realizes, what am I doing? And Pujols says, what are you doing? You're gathering wool. That's what you're doing. So Puig has to be embarrassed out there, nonchalanting the fly ball. Albert teaches him a lesson. And he should, and he could, and he did. So here now is Eric Ibar, 0-1. Remember, and it was an innocent thing. He certainly didn't mean to step on Pujols. But Albert decided to take him to school. And for Puig having a tough night, he hasn't hit the ball out of the infield and he has struck out. In the dirt. Nice block by A.J. 1 ball, 1 strike. Hanley Ramirez over to talk to Pujols, and I'm sure Hanley's thought was the wise old man took the kid to school. Ground foul. So that's another thing Frias learns. He comes up with a 96-mile-an-hour fastball against a smallish shortstop who promptly pulls it foul outside of first. And you say, oh. 1-2. Carlos will be 25 the middle of November. Fastball away. 2-2 to Eric Ibar. 1 for 3. The newest Dodger, Carlos Frias. And that's going to go foul. Ibar, who's from the Dominican. 2 balls, 2 strikes. The paid attendance tonight, the 7th sellout, 53,166. Fouled away again. Five runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Angels, including the home run by Hamilton, doubles by Trout and Pujols. And the Dodgers, no runs, 3 hits, and 2 errors. Fastball lifted to Puig. No, I don't think Pujols is going to try to tag. Look at Puig. Pujols waves back at him. So 2 out. Puig daring Pujols to tag. Pujols gesturing back at him. And now Ramirez over to say something. 2 out. and the batter Howie Kendrick. Winners tell jokes, losers say deal, and it's all Angels up to here. Kendrick reached on an error, looped out to Ramirez, and lined out to Ramirez. So Howie is 0 for 3, did score a run. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 8th inning, because they have rearranged the lineup, Justin Turner will lead it off. 0-2. Justin will be followed by D. Gordon and then Yasiel Puig. Boy, I know one thing. In the old days, when Puig would come up, the visiting dugout would be all over him. I don't know if the Angels will get on him, but boy, I remember many years ago, no chance would he get away from a game like he's had tonight, especially with Pujols taking second on him. And that'll do it for Kendrick. And for Carlos Rios, welcome to the big leagues. Gives up a leadoff single to Pujols and then retires 3 in a row. Turner, Gordon, and Puig. 5-0 Angels. Puig, as if to say, I'll just catch it. That old man isn't going to tag up on me. And Albert's having a lot of fun imitating Puig. And the teammates in a moment, Josh Hamilton will talk to him. Mike Trout will come over, keeping the smile on his face hidden under the glove. So Albert Pujols embarrasses Puig, but also teaches him a lesson. And now, of course, there is Uribe getting all over him. And for Puig, a painful lesson, an embarrassing lesson. And it was Pujols who took him to school. And he'll be coming up after Turner and Gordon. We'll have to take a shot of the Angel dugout when Puig comes up to hit. I mean, you don't have to hear it. If they get on him, you will tell. So Justin Turner finishing up at third. That's in there. 1 ball and 1 strike. Justin has been a tremendous asset for the Dodgers. I don't think anybody realized he'd be hitting .310, 3 home runs, 23 RBIs, play first, play second, play short, and play third. 1-2, and that might have gotten a little bit of conga. Left side of the face. I'm all right, he said. Big swing, and the ball hits the mask and drives Hank down on one knee. I also thought maybe Turner's bat hit him. It happened so fast, but I think it was more the foul ball. Boy, we have seen some terrible foul balls and damage. Chris Ionata has been around a long time. Chris, of course, used to be with the Rockies, so he empathizes with Conger. I'm sure Chris took plenty on the mask and while he was catching. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Justin Turner. Carlos Frias in his major league debut made 15 pitches. Foul ball off to the right. Dodgers have really not been able to do anything against Garrett Richards. They have piled up 3 hits, no runs. They've gotten 1 man to third base. And yes, in a sense, they've been embarrassed. Slider just off the plate. 2-2. Just in the red. Leading off, then Gordon, then Puig, and we'll see about that. Fastball. On the other end of it is Eric Ibar. Boy, he is a good shortstop. 1 away. Now the batter will be D. Gordon, and he's had a rough night. Gordon hit back to the box, struck out twice, knocked down in a collision with an umpire. Drive safely going home when you have one of those days. D with a .292 batting average. Freeze playing on the edge of the grass. Pujols come up about even with the bag. Ball 1. 99 pitches made by Garrett Richards. He's made over 100 many times. His tops this year 119. 1-1. In the American League, when you use a designated hitter, you have a tendency to let your pitchers stay in a little bit longer. Little number to third, tough play, bare hand throw is too late. I mean, Freeze did everything you could ask of him, but you rarely are going to get Gordon on a little topper like that. And now let's watch. After the ground ball base hit, which you have now looked at for a second time, Yasiel Puig coming up. What about the Angel dugout? Are they quiet? Yeah, it looks that way. Well, Pujols is having a ball talking to Gordon about tagging up. So Yasiel has been embarrassed. Ball 1. It's amazing, isn't it, how he always winds up on stage. I mean, he goes in the home run derby, and everybody talks about the fact not only didn't he hit a home run, he actually checked his swing on the first pitch, which broke everybody up. Then he played in his first All-Star game. He didn't just go 0 for 3. He struck out 3 times. In the dirt, blocked by Conger, but he can't make a play. And down goes Gordon to second base. So it'll be a wild pitch. So that will be 21 wild pitches. Boy, that thing exploded. So Puig is up there, 2 balls and no strikes. It's 5-0 Angels, bottom of the 8th. Fastball hit to center. It's playable. And Trout is there. Bluffing to grow is Gordon, but he's not going to try. Mike hits the cutoff man Ibar. So Puig head down, going back to the dugout. And the batter will be Adrian Gonzalez.
First baseman, number 23, Adrian Gonzalez.
Gonzalez flied to left, struck out, grounded out. Too bad that Puig didn't reach first base and then stand there and have a little conversation with Pujols. But it's not to be. But this is just game one of the 4 games. He's annoyed and disappointed. But not Richards. Dodgers get a runner to second base. That's a big deal tonight. 2 out here in the 8th inning. The breaking ball for ball 1. We told you at the start that Richards had made pitches for 144 in the 3rd innings, that if he stayed in, he was going to go well beyond the number of pitches and innings he ever had in his young career. But Jerry DiPoto said, we're not going to cap him. We're going to let him pitch. Nice quick save by Conger. 2-0. Just looking at the fewest number of pitches, he left the game in 2/3 of an inning, and he only made 37 pitches, but all of the other games, the high 90s and way over 100. Fastball fouled away. Garrett Richards is 6'3", 215 pounds. Fouled. Manny Gonzalez might have gotten a little bit of that. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count in the Freeway Series. Foul ball got Manny on the right leg. Hits the ground and nailed him more than the right leg. Are you okay? I'm okay. 2-2. Gordon at second with 2 out. Gonzalez trying to pick him up. Did he? Yes, he did. Fastball away at 98. So Adrian strikes out a second time. He goes 0 for 4. They leave Gordon. And at the end of 8, it's 5-0 Angels. Tomorrow night, the Dodgers trot out the best they have. Clayton Kershaw trying to get a split in the first two games. And we will see Clayton. He'll be going up against Hector Santiago in game 2 here before the show moves on for Anaheim Wednesday and Thursday. But it's 5-0 Angels all the way here in the 9th inning. Hector Santiago will be on the hill against Clayton, who brings that brilliant 13-2 record and a somewhat unbelievable earned run average of 1.7. Well, he's something to see. Santiago is a kid from New Jersey, and we've never seen him pitch before, so good matchup. Ball 1 to David Freese. Singled in a run, reached on an error, fly to center. 1 for 3. 38 RBIs, but he's picked up 20 in the last 30 games. Strike. Looking at the Angel bullpen, and it's quiet. They're spectators. So I guess Garrett Richards will attempt to pitch his first complete game of the year. He has one complete game last year, and he's going to go for another tonight. He's been great, even though he's been falling behind the hitters, but he has such overpowering stuff. I mean, Richards has fallen behind 1 ball and no strikes to 17 of the 30 hitters, but he turns right around. He has struck out 8. He had 2 walks back in the 2nd inning, and that's it. He has just been a wonderful pitcher, and of course the Dodgers expected that. After all, the American League hitters are hitting 197 against Garrett Richards, and in the 3 games that he has pitched against National League teams, he is now going to improve on an earned run average that was 0.47. I mean, he is special. Ground ball backhanded by Hanley. The long throw on the money. 1 out in the 9th. Hank Conger will be coming up. Fly to center, grounded out, struck out. Hank is 0 for 3. Conger got a bad foul tip. There are no good foul tips, but I mean, he got one that I think he thought for the moment might have dislocated his jaw, but he's all right. Then the plate umpire, Manny Gonzalez, took one below the belt. A.J. Ellis has been beaten up, so that's quite an area around home plate. Strike. Conger is 26 years old, switch hitter, 6'2" and about 220. 0-2. His high school program set Hank Conger up to train with Brent Maine. Remember Brent? He spent a year with the Dodgers back in 2004. Very nice man. Fouled away. No balls, 2 strikes, 1 out, 9th inning, 5-0 Angels. They've been in control since Calhoun led off the game with a single left. D. Gordon helps for the 2nd out. So Carlos Frias, the newest of the Dodger pitchers, gave up a base hit to Pujols. He's now retired 5 in a row. And here's Garrett Richards. With the bat, he is 0 for 3, but Gordon took a hit away from him in the 7th inning. When the Dodgers come up in the 9th, Ramirez, Kemp, and Crawford. Fouled away. Richards is working on his 17th quality start. That's terrific. You know, 6 innings, 2 runs or less. Well, this will be his 17th. He's also in line to win his 7th game on the road. That'll do it with the bat. But we'll see Garrett with the ball in a moment. Nice bit of pitching by Carlos Frias. 6 in a row after the single, and we're heading to the bottom of the 9th. 5-0 Angels. Nothing in the 9th inning. 40-year-old John McDonald. Well, let's face it, he'll be 40 in September, but he is a remarkable player. He was a 12th round pick by the Indians out of Providence College. He's from Connecticut. He was born in New London, lives in Situate in Massachusetts, and he's had a great career, and he's still playing away. He played with the Indians for a long time, then the Blue Jays, then the Diamondbacks, the Pirates, the Indians, the Phillies, the Red Sox, and finally here he is with the Angels. Johnny Mack. And of course on the mound, Garrett Richards. Richards will be facing Ramirez to start it off. And a note, Carlos Frias, the youngster just brought up in relief of Greinke. First man he faced was Albert Pujols, who singled, and he then retired 6 in a row, striking out 2 and making 28 pitches. So a rather impressive game for Carlos Frias. Bottom of the 9th inning with Hanley Ramirez, single to right, hit back to the box, grounded to second, committed 2 errors, and will lead it off. Fastball. Foul back, 0-1. We pause for ducking for our lives. 0-1. Down in the bullpen, there's a familiar face no matter what uniform he wears. Houston Street getting ready. Houston Street, by the way, has already saved 6 games, and he's pitched 7 scoreless innings. Little ground ball to the right side. Kendrick to Pujols. That does it for Ramirez.
Right fielder number 27, Matt Kemp.
Since the 5th inning, the Dodgers have hit 1 fly ball to the outfield. I mean, Garrett Richards has just stuffed the bats. Matt Kemp walked, struck out twice. For Richards, pushing it a little bit, 111 pitches. Matt hitting .283. Ball one. Oakland playing Tampa Bay, and they're 2-2. Not sure what inning. 7th inning. Remember, the Angels started the night 1 game behind Oakland. Angels on their way to their 67th win. Oakland's already won 67. Dodgers, meanwhile, will drop a game to the Giants, and the Dodger lead that had been 3.5 will be reduced to 1.5. And with 3 more left with the Angels before going to Milwaukee and Atlanta and coming home to play Milwaukee. So it is a rocky road ahead, and we're not talking ice cream. 2 balls, 1 strike. That's a strike. Matt doesn't like it. 2-2. Garrett Richards so far has had the hitters swing 16 times and miss. Foul ball. Tomorrow night, Clayton Kershaw, Hector Santiago. And we should include Albert Pujols and Yasiel Puig and a cast of characters starring Clayton Kershaw. Two balls, 2 strikes. Breaking ball got him. Matt Kemp strikes out for the 3rd time. 17 swings and misses. 9 strikeouts for Garrett Richards. The batter is Carl Crawford. 117 pitches for Garrett Richards. So if they were trying to test his stamina, trying to see about how long he can go, well, he's under a full head of steam tonight. Crawford struck out, singled, grounded out. A little flare to left field, that will drop. So Andre Ethier will be coming up as Crawford gets a 2-out bloop single to left.
Attention, please, for the Dodgers.
Dodgers with 5 hits. And Andre Ethier is really having a problem. Ethier's last 6 at-bats, he has struck out. So let's see his good fortune this time. Ethier hitting .243, 4 home runs, 37 runs batted in. There goes Crawford. It's defensive indifference, no stolen base. 1 ball and no strikes to Andre. Andre strikes out about 3 times as much as he walks. Check swing, it'll be a strike. 1-1. Andre doesn't want to argue. He thinks it missed by so much it's laughable. One ball, 1 strike. Five runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Angels, including doubles by Pujols and Trout, and a home run by Josh Hamilton. and the Dodgers no runs, 5 hits, 2 errors. The winner will certainly be Richards and the loser Greinke. Breaking ball rolled to short. High bar. Makes the play, although it was close. So down go the Dodgers. They weren't in the game after the first inning. 5-0, and certainly the player of the game had to be Garrett Richards. He was absolutely magnificent, although he had to work hard. Got high fastballs and struck out 9. He also made 122 pitches, which is a lot, but I guess not so in the American League. The pitchers go out there all the time because of the designated hitter. So now for the Angels, they are this close to Oakland, and the Oaks are tied up against Tampa Bay. The Dodgers know they have just dropped the game and are now leading the Giants by 1.5. Well, that ought to do it for tonight. Look forward to chatting with you tomorrow night if you're not out here with us. And until then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.